This might be one of the biggest generational wealth transfers we've seen, going from the people who reaped the best of the American dream to more corporatists who are going to be driving Mercedes to the hospital to have their healthcare managerial job that shouldn't exist because the whole system is corrupt.
I really like Mark Mitchell, not just because he's an accurate guy and friendly, but because he wears it on his sleeve that he goes out and does real polling. It's not political. He doesn't bend polls to try to get people on bandwagons and manipulate. He's got the accuracy record, but he's honest about the fact that he then uses the information to try to promote freedom and justice and populism and an agenda that's for the people. Most of the pollster groups are totally political, and they just spin things back and forth to try to create bandwagon effects. That's why polling has gotten so incredibly discredited. Real polling is one of the most valuable things in the world. And, polling is just talking to people in your neighborhood or talking to folks you don't normally talk to. Like, get a feel, get out there, folks, beyond the TV, beyond Hollywood. And that's real polling right there. That's what Trump's always done, where he, in his companies and businesses, goes in the kitchen, sometimes works 18 hours a day, goes in and, talks to all the construction workers. Well, what's your issue? What do you think? Elon Musk will go into a company that he wants to, get fired up, and he'll sometimes spend 24 hours straight spending 5 minutes with 1,000 employees. He just wants from the janitor to the top guy, and that's when he gets the answers. So, bring Musk back, even if it has to be just as a figurehead, because I think Musk's sick of it, so that people get energized. Young people love him. They love the energy. Big mistake. Trump gets a big bump and enthusiasm out of that. But you notice Mark Mitchell and I keep hammering this. The White House listens to every one of these interviews, and they follow him elsewhere. But the point is that we've got their ear. And this issue of the youth and how to communicate to them and how to bring up a plan and how to talk to them about their problems, not just sit there and tell them what a great job you're doing, is what they want. They want to feel like they're included in the discussion and that somebody's developing a plan as they watch, nothing to be mean, but the rich boomers comparatively off in their own world. And people see this, and it's rough for young people, even those that want to work hard. So this is the existential crisis. We're in this. It's what has to be addressed. And if Trump will just start reaching out to them and maybe having youth conferences at the White House and hearing about their problems and focus groups, and having youth there telling him and listening, you'll see his numbers explode, and you will see us win the midterms, because we are in a fourth turning. We don't have to be the party in power and lose it like they say. The numbers show that. And 6 months ago, he was there. Now we're not. We don't have to let Susie Wiles, I don't say she's a bad person, but all these people that are so old, and you saw in that Vanity Fair interview, just, they've got to sit back and listen to us. They got to listen to Barron. He still thinks CBS and is important, or Jimmy Kimmel, almost no viewers, because he's 79, folks. He doesn't understand it. We've got to get him, understanding where the audience is, where the power is, where it's not just the youth. The middle-aged and old people watch the podcast. Even medium-sized podcasts are bigger than CNN. So I'm ranting, Mark, in the time we have left, speaking to the youth, what the president should do, a plan, what your polls are showing there, because, again, this is the big issue.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And we're slandered as right-wing or Republican or conservative pollsters, and I'm trying to figure out what my politics are. I ask people questions. I report on the results. We live in a representative democracy. I think that my politics are just people should get what they want, unless it's objectively stupid or evil. And I think that that's fair to say. Like, it's objectively stupid to flood your country with people that don't belong here. So we shouldn't do that. We should fix that. And if anybody's standing in the way, as a representative of the American people, I'm going to come down on them like really, really, really hard. And I think there's an aspect here, again, of they don't understand the core problems. They're not addressing them. I think your idea of having a youth council is excellent. I would go a step further and say that we should probably have like an actual war room put together of people who, aren't billionaires, like who do have this problem with economic populism, that are on the internet, but who have some agency to come up with a plan. So I went to AmFest and I had a panel, and it was called The Demise of Performative Politics. And so I think because the hour is late, that people are less willing to put up with this red team, blue team kabuki. And I'll give you an example. Jack Posobiec who I love, was railing against Biden inflation. It was Biden. The Biden administration did this. And, I think I sit back and I look at that and I think, well, Yeah, that's true, but it's a lot more than that. There's a systematic rot that's happened for decades that stole the American dream. And when you come into power on an existential platform, not just like, hey, we're going to do some stuff with healthcare policy. Like, no, this is like we're almost shooting each other. Like something has to happen. Getting in and doing as much as you can, and then pointing at the other team and saying, no, they're the bad guys. It's not enough. And I feel like that's what we're on the track for. And I don't think that it's going to be possible looking ahead to October to say, well, what economic metric is the Trump administration going to glom onto and say, look, we succeeded. We did it. We're there. We're at the American dream. And it would be things like the stock market, maybe labor market. That would be better. Probably GDP. But it's like, well, we just had a really good GDP print today, and it was based on rising consumer spending. And yet, I heard from Bloomberg that 50% of all retail sales in America come from the top 10% of income earners. And so, if you're not really intentional about laying out an actual strategy going forward that's going to work, people are not going to earn your vote. So, anyway,
let's just back up for 10 seconds. Say what you just said again. Henry Ford revolutionized industry, retail, everything when he said, I want to pay my employees enough to buy the Model T. I also want to make it inexpensive enough that I don't have to pay them too much. You've literally, as an aristocrat who is smart and in charge, you prove it by being superior, rising tide raises all ships. The globalists are like, no, let's knock out all the economies. Let's kill old people. Don't take care of them. Get rid of all of the systems to take care of them. Have a pie that shrinks. No. What do retailers think? What do the elites that own the retail think when they're the only ones that can buy it? There's not going to even be an infrastructure. So it's like they're killing the economy just so they have higher digit numbers, but it's digit numbers that rule over ashes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Like, look at how much of the stock market is driven by like the top 10 companies or whatever. And I had a tweet today. I was talking to somebody in the hospice industry. You look at boomers, and the fourth turning stuff is getting wild on the internet. Like 2 years ago, people weren't really talking about it. I talked about it a lot. Now it's everywhere on YouTube. People are talking about the generation that got everything. So boomers have concentrated a lot of wealth. And again, I'm not attacking boomers. And you would say, all right, well, they're going to start aging out. They're going to start dying. They're going to start transferring that wealth. Well, I look at our healthcare industry. I look at long-term care. I look at hospice. And I look at a system that's probably designed to extract as much of that wealth as possible. And so this might be one of the biggest generational wealth transfers we've seen, going from the people who reaped the best of the American dream to more corporatists who are going to be driving Mercedes to the hospital to have their healthcare managerial job that shouldn't exist because the whole system is corrupt. So that's what I'm saying. And these things might sound insane to somebody who's been part of Republican politics for decades, but this is how the youth talk. So Jack Posobiec's there banging the desk about Biden-inflation, and we're fixing Biden-inflation. And I said, well, you know what? Like, yeah, it was bad, but it was like the cherry on top of decades of kleptocracy. And personally speaking, what impacted my career the most was George H.W. Bush's Immigration Act in 1990. And that practically got a standing ovation from these under 30 people. You know what I mean? Like, so they know.
And by the way, you've done polls, and I've seen studies too. This is the first time really in the last 100 years where the young people, those that are engaged, are the most concerned about black ops, government spending, and they've done a study where they're like super informed. There's a large swath of young people. They're either total zombies or they're like super political, super active, and like are into sophisticated stuff. So the system better watch out. There's a bunch of people coming up that know what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. We just had one with election integrity a couple of days ago. Venezuela and U.S. elections.
Here it is.
President Trump has drawn attention to claims the government of Venezuela has been involving rigging elections in the United States and other countries. How familiar are you with these claims about Venezuela rigging elections? And 51% of America is familiar and 43% is not. But the 18 to 29 number is 56%. Like almost 6 in 10 Zoomers. And these people are not the most they're pretty naive. They're pretty young. They got a lot going on, but they're on the internet and they're seeing this stuff. 56% to 37%, the highest of any age bracket. And so they're like, oh yeah, we know what this is about. And I think it's one of the reasons, again, the Zoomers don't like the idea of going to fight a war against Russia in Ukraine, but they're not really freaking out about it, Venezuela. And it's like, well, they're hearing these claims. It's getting out there. And people say the internet's not the real world. And it's like, no, but the internet's fighting the info war that will become the real world. And the internet knows exactly what's going on. All these corrupt interests have captured the government, and they're looking at Trump for signs, and they're starting to see them. And this is really bad. And again, I'm not a Republican. I am for the people. I am a referee for this whole system. And when I see things that suck, I'm going to say it. And I ask Grok backed me up. In 2025, Donald Trump has spoken more publicly, more times, about Miriam Adelson than he has about people under 40 buying houses.